Good morning, traders. It's Wednesday morning, and it's FOMC day today. It is now 8:15 my time, 11:15 Eastern, and 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock Eastern will be the FOMC projection that's put out 8 months or 8 times a year, and I expect that typically gives a lot of volatility. So what I did overnight was kind of hung out and waited and I thought what I'd seen here's the 10-minute chart, here's the 1 hour, and here's the 4 hour. I thought I had seen an ABC in all this correction because it had come up a little over 61% of this whole move. And so overnight it did this. So I took a short at the top here and then got stopped out, and now I waited. And what happens with a correction is because of the size of the market and the way things have been moving, sometimes what I think is an ABC is actually just the A wave of the bigger ABC. So once I got stopped out here and I had these 3 candles pushed through and hit my stop for 7.5 points, I thought, well, that means that this is more than likely an A, and this is, of course, is a beautiful 3-wave B that I didn't see till after the fact, and then it stopped me out. So I thought the C was up here, and that was the right call. I actually took one trade up here about an hour ago thinking this had topped, and I thought I saw enough of an impulsive move to go ahead and go short, and then I set my stop loss right above that high right there, and it just tipped me out. And so I realized that I just didn't get quite the impulsive move I needed for my conviction that it is the top of the C. So I just took a short again here about 5 minutes ago, and I think I did catch this impulsive wave this time. So what I'm working on is this. The market had come down and finished a trend on the longer time frame and the 4-hour time frame. What I think is happening here on the 4-hour is, as it has come out of this longer correction that we've been in since October, is I believe what I'm looking at is a wave 1, a wave 2, and then it's going into subdivisions of a wave 3. So probably wave 1 of 3, and now it's starting down to wave 2 of 3. For those of you who follow Elliott Wave theory. But be that as it may, whether it is or not, I had a good ABC correction here, and it finally turned. And so, again, like I have my note here, 11 o'clock my time this morning, 2 o'clock Eastern, we get the FOMC. I don't like getting in the market just before that, but since it's 2.5, almost 3 hours before this is coming out, and this made the turn, what I'm expecting to happen is this will push itself down here somewhere in the next 3 hours down in here. So it gives me plenty of room to just ride that volatility out when that comes out, because I think this is a legitimate ABC, and I think we're heading back down to test the bottom again. And I'm really not big on support and resistance, guys, but I know that when it gets down here to the February low that it just almost touched yesterday, that there's always some hesitation. But there's nothing in these charts telling me that this isn't going on through. Now I could be proven wrong, and that's fine because I'm trading one setup at a time here. So I'll see what happens when it gets down here in this area around 25.29, the February low. But for now, I'm short, and I will update you guys later in the day, probably after the FOMC, maybe tonight if I'm still in. I'll let you know what's happening with this trade. But for now, after getting stopped out overnight, and this coming up through, and then getting stopped out once here because I didn't quite set my stop loss far enough, and I'm not willing, once I think I see an impulsive move, I'm not willing to set my stop any higher than the last high, just as a principle and a trade rule. So I got stopped out again right here, and now it's looks like I've got the impulsive move I need. Time will tell. If this goes up and stops me out, then we'll know it pretty soon. So I will get back to you guys later on in the day. Hello, traders. This is Barry again. It's actually Friday right after market close, and I didn't do an update on my video that I was just talking about, and so I put these two together. Where we were at on Wednesday morning was a couple hours before the FOMC release, and I wanted to cover this because it's a good lesson for me that I will take to heart, that I have known for years and I still get caught up doing. And so maybe it will be shed some light for some other people who think that it's a good idea to trade news releases and to enter the market before the news release. Every once in a while, if the setup is perfect, it's not a bad idea, but you have to give yourself room. And because I'm not willing to give myself room, I got stopped out a few times before I finally caught the downturn. So I wanted to cover my myopic view of the markets. I was saying just in the last piece that I thought this was an ABC. And every once in a while, what you have to do is realize that the smaller ABC that I think is an ABC might actually be just the A wave. And so here's where I was at when we were talking, and let me show you what happened the rest of that morning before the FOMC. I got stopped out there. I came back in. I got stopped out there, and there's the FOMC release right there on this candle. Got stopped out twice. Finally got back in here, and by the end of the day session on Wednesday's FOMC, then I took 50 and a half points on this move down, which more than made up for what I lost up here. So I entered 3 hours before the release, and lesson learned again. Instead of going through all that headache and then finally getting back in, if I would have just waited 30 minutes after the release, I could have got in here where I got in anyway without the stop outs, and would have had one good trade instead of 3 bad ones before I got ultimately the good one that made up for all of them. And I'd rather just take good ones than possible ones. And even though I thought this was the ABC and it was finished, it went up again. And when I entered back in short here, I gave myself room above here with the stop loss, thinking surely this is the end of that trend. And the volatility actually spiked more Wednesday morning than I've seen it spike in a while on the FOMC, and it just shot up, in a second and took me out again. So then I waited and finally got back in. So lessons learned, small ABC might just be a bigger A wave. And of course, this the ABC here is extended. Remember, this was overnight. And that's what ultimately came out on this correction is this was all overnight and extended. I thought it was done extending by this time, and then the FOMC came out, and of course news releases, the big ones, the few big ones, distort everything. And so it's best just to wait. Again, I took 50 and a half points finally, so I think I wound up with maybe 20 points positive on that day, which is not bad. I mean, I made up for it, and I wasn't revenge trading. I finally got to the point where I got so mad at being stopped out and just waited. And then when I saw that it was definitely heading down and this was the end of that correction, let's do the 1 hour here. ABC, this was the end of that correction, then I was okay with that. So that's what happened. I just wanted to update you guys on the FOMC. Lessons: don't enter before the release. At least I shouldn't, and I know better, but I did anyway, thinking that that the pattern was complete. There will always be better opportunities coming. If you will just get in your psyche that you will miss some trades, and that's okay. Do not get caught by what we call FOMO, which is fear of missing out, because there are always more trades coming. There are always better opportunities, and you're much better with a few good trades during the week instead of the 25 or 30 I sometimes take. Yes, I make money. Yes, I'm positive on the end of the week, but it's a hard, weird way of getting there, and I would like to save you guys that pain. So don't worry about fear of missing out. There's plenty of opportunities, and let that volatility settle down after a news release before you determine what you're going to do. So I just thought I'd update you on that, and then here I'm also going to do an end of the week update and review of what happened this week in the sell-off. So this was the rest of the week through today, which I'm finishing up this on Friday afternoon. Here's the end of the week, and I'll make another video on the end of the week. So take care and good trading.